Hello, everyone. I welcome you to this next segment of Women in Data Science Ashoka. Our first speaker is the Chief Data Officer at Z and Z5 Global in India. I would like to welcome Ujjaini Mitra. As the Chief Data Officer, she is building Center of Excellence for Z spanning across broadcast, digital, movies and music, both domestic and global businesses. She is working to embed science in the field of art, in taking content decisions, concept generation, production to post production, hyper personalized communication, contextual ad, serving through artificial intelligence and neuroscience. She is leading the team that collectively serves the single source of truth and answers who, what, how, and why of the business strategies. She will be answering questions after her talk, so if you do have any, add them to the Q&A. With this, I now hand over the stage to ma'am.
Thank you so much. And this is a very special honor to invite me in with Ashoka. Earlier, also, I had been part of WADES, and it's a very unique concept where all the speakers are women, and the best part is the participants actually can be anyone, and that really boosts the confidence. It brings lots of new leaders into limelight. So I'm very thankful to receive this invitation. So today, I will be talking about something very interesting in the media industry. Unlike many other industries where we do lots of analysis around marketing, sales, or product design, media is one industry which gives us a special use case, which is actually to analyze the content. And whether it is a video content or audio content, whether it is a picture or it's a thumbnail, it's a GIF, whatever it is. And one of the very important part in the life cycle of the content is deciding which content we want to bring on board. So today I will talk about how, at least in Z5, we have initiated to embed science into this artistic decision. Because most of the cases, or many a times, I have seen that there are people who actually are sitting and watching content, right, and then taking a very gut feel based decision, and their decision is therefore has lots of biases. Because if I'm watching a content and I'm taking a call, it's more about thinking, am I liking it? Will people like me will like it or not, without really knowing who are the true consumers. So when I'm taking a decision for the consumers, there are lots of personal biases that goes into it, and therefore there always is a hit and trial situation whether a content will work or not, right? So there are contents where people have spent a lot but then ultimately didn't give enough revenue, and there are contents where people didn't spend enough but it was a true hit, right? So we are trying to see that how science can be embedded to be able to reduce the biases. It's not to replace the creativity of the artist, but it is more to help in decision making and to be able to reduce biases wherever possible. Okay. um, these are the key places where actually data science plays a role in media. I will, of course, not go into the details of it. Marketing, ad sales, the creation of the content, casting and editing is the very important one where I will focus. Content publishing, customer satisfaction, and also in the product design, because product design is also very important part, particularly if it's a digital section. All right, so I'll directly jump into the content creation. Now, I think many of you do not know that in the whole content creation life cycle, there are almost 38 steps. So I have put it in a more concise fashion, and this is a chain of process. So what happens is the content at times comes just as a concept, which is a two-liner or a three-line summary of what the story is about, right? then it goes through a concept approval, because a concept also need to be matching with the brand promise, brand value. Like, we as a brand, do I want to stand one such concept or not? Is there any kind of polarity into it? Do I want to support it or not? So there are lots of debates and discussions happens even at that level. But after the concept is approved, next things it happens is the story arc, because then the concept moves into the whole story formation. Story goes to script, script goes to screenplay. After that, it comes the pre-production, where you are choosing who are the artists, who are the cast, who are the where actually am I going to shoot it, right? So if it's a story about, say, Lahore, and maybe I cannot go to Lahore, but what is a possible alternative? Can I therefore consider Lucknow is one such place where I can actually shoot the story which is around Lahore, right? So lots of those things come there. Then the production, the actual shootings are happening. Then the post production comes. So the content in its raw format has come, and then people who are editors, the creative editors, they're actually editing it, creating lots of the audio and video might be stitched together, because those have been shoot together separately. So those are getting stitched together, different sections are getting stitched, and the whole story is getting formulated. Then we are creating lots of trailers, teasers, which are kind of going as a marketing component. Then the episodes, so first either it is a movie or an episodic content, like a web series, which we see today a lot on the digital platforms. How many episodes I want to convert a story into? Is it a 8 episode, 10 episode? Which is the right one? How long should be an episode? Is it a 40 minutes or is it a 20 minutes episodes, right? And then finally, once the submission happens, then it goes to the platform for launching the whole content. Um, Through this whole journey, what happens is, if I can realize early in the whole chain whether the content is going to work well or not, that is actually a huge amount of cost saving. Now, here we are not deciding whether the content is good or bad. What we are deciding is whether the content will work for our consumer or not. So there is a difference between the thinking whether the content is good or bad versus whether the content will work for my kind of platform, for my consumers or not. So the same content might work very well on Z5 but may not work on, say, Netflix. On the other hand, a content which is really good and actually working very well on Netflix may not necessarily work as well on Z5, right? So because consumers itself are very different. People who are coming on Z5, their preferences, their expectations, their psychological structures might be very different compared to people who are actually coming and watching the Netflix kind of content, right? So therefore, our answer that we are trying to see, will it work for our users on our platform, is actually what we are trying to get. And that's where we eliminate and try to eradicate as much bias as possible. So what therefore first thing is important is to be able to understand our consumers who are already coming to our platform. Say, for example, these are our subscribers who are subscribing for premium content. What kind of content they engage with, what kind of content they binge watch, what kind of content they don't like, or which section of the content they are not liking, where they are dropping off, what kind of scenes are actually working for them versus not working for them, what kind of actors or casts are working for them, right? So where they have the fandom based, is it more TV artists where their fandoms are coming for, or is it actually very high end international artists where they actually want to see them, so where they feel associated with. So those are the things becomes important, and that's where we started with something we call as a consumer test cluster, which in outside it may sound like just doing a consumer segmentation, but it is ultimately very much connected to understanding consumers content preferences, and to be able to test clusters for out of those consumers, to understand what are the different kinds of archetypes exist within our platform who are coming and watching content. So say, and the biggest difference is, for example, say if I pick up a movie like Uri, right? So say 10 people are watching Uri, but I might be watching for the Vicky Kaushal, who is actually the lead artist in that, because I'm a fan of that person, versus another person watching it because it's a beautiful action thriller, right? Another person watching because it's a very patriotic story and the person connects to the patriotism and therefore watching it. So how do we understand this connection, which is actually at the happening at the back of my brain, and which is why I'm watching it, right? So this is actually beyond genre, because content has genre. Say we say that, okay, this is a crime thriller, this is an action movie, this is a comedy movie, or this is a romantic movie, but this is beyond genre classification. Just to give an example, so within our we found that among our subscribers we have almost 63 different test clusters. Out of them, one of the test cluster we name as a new age women. Okay, now this new age women is a very deceptive terminology. It doesn't mean that these are only women subscribers. Why we name this? Because these are the people who like very new age realistic ended content. So they are not kind of people who want lovey-dovey very happy ending kind of stories. They want things which are ending has a very realistic end, right? These are the people who like contents which are relatable to their psychological metaphor. For example, if they're watching a content where it's a family going through a struggle and the woman is moving out of the family, growing up child, as a single woman, and that's something considered as a very realistic and relatable for them, because that is something they're seeing it in life so often everywhere, right? And that's a relatable story. Engaging with stories which has very strong lady protagonist. So the reason we name it women, because all these stories has very strong lady protagonist. Either it's a lady who is flying a army, an air force pilot, or probably a woman who is dreaming very high and trying to become a world renowned chef. And it can be many such things where the women are having the voice into the whole story, right? And then the genre doesn't matter. It can be a thriller, it can be action, it can be comedy, anything. But these are the three characteristics which are very important, and that is what define these segments. So which means therefore clearly the typical genre based hypothetical segments doesn't work. Earlier people used to think, okay, there are people who like always a comedy kind of show, there are people who like action oriented content, action is mostly for the male. That kind of hypothetical segments are breaking out, and what is coming is a very different archetypes where we understand the meta informations of content and connect people's thinking and try to see why they are watching what they are watching. Okay. um but however, the difficulty is we have almost 110 hours of content that gets added in our platform every day. So doing it for such a large piece of content and almost like 80 million consumers, it's not a matter of joke. And what kind of KPI? So many people ask, therefore, what kind of KPIs you actually consider to be able to jump into that kind of ML modeling? So what we looked at is, first of all, what content. So at an n equal to 1 level, so every subscriber, what content he or she is watching. Now, it is not important that just what content they watch. What's important is what is the extent at which the person is watching, which section they are really watching very well. So that means they are not scrubbing, they are not fast forward. So people fast forward the section which they don't like, right? So it is not just understanding what content they are watching. So if I just watch that, okay, Uri is a content person is watching, I will only know as much. But if I see which sections people are watching, there are people who fast forward the section where Vicky Kaushal isn't present. So, and this has mostly happened when they are re-watching the content, right? Now that's clearly because they want to watch the specific actions of Vicky Kaushal and not necessarily the story. There are people who enjoy the songs and certain sections they watch very detailed because they want those patriotic sections to watch very well, right? So therefore, to understand which section of the content they are watching is equally important. How long they are watching, Are they repeat watching the content? When are they watching? Is it something they're watching on the go? On the go, generally people watch snackable content. If it's a very, content which connects to their heart deeply, they generally prefer to get a me time or a family time when they're watching it, right? So when they're watching, what kind of device they're watching? Are they watching at a large screen like a Fire Stick or smart TV, where it is more of a family device, or are they watching at their own mobile and at a, say, at a late night when she has or he has completed all the works, that is his or her me time, and watching at, my device kind of thing? Which connections are they using, and where they are watching? That's very important. So if I see the person is mostly watching, say, going at a Goa, and you are on a vacation and you are watching, versus you are actually at your home and you are watching. So all those parts actually very important, right? um, so then what we have done is, it was pretty difficult to start with because there were too many KPIs that we jumped into it. And we also have 12 different language content. So first we told, okay, let us and language is a very important part for Z5, because Z as a brand is very deep rooted into different Indian languages, because we kind of have channels in 12 different languages. We are pretty strong on Bangla, Tamil, Marathi, all those languages. So language is very important for us. Um, so what we looked at is, instead of doing a factor, I mean, instead of doing a more segmentations, or say for example a k-mean segmentations, what we first wanted is, we wanted to create a factor analysis. Now why factor analysis? Because we said that we want to see which kind of contents are clubbing together. So if I am watching 5 different contents, you are watching 5 different contents, I will say you and I have a very similarity in terms of our preference if both of us watching a same kind of content, or the same content group of content and the same section. So if both of us depict a very similarity in terms of our watching behavior, right? So that's where understanding content and segmenting content was very important. um, so then, what we did, we actually created a factor analysis where our variables were, for every user, what percentage of the content the person has watched. So if I have watched 90% of a content, that means that is where my predominant preference lie. If I have watched something only 5%, that means I explored it but not necessarily liked it, right? And that's why I didn't complete the content. So if I look at the completion rate, that kind of showcase whether I'm engrossed, did I enjoy the content or not. And if I scrubbed most of the plays, then that tells me that I liked the story or maybe certain section of the content, but not necessarily the end-to-end story of it, right? And then, based on eigenvalue and factor loading, we have come up to certain contents. So when we look at that, so my different shows actually creates different access, and people's based on this, hyperplane. So if I consider it like a n-dimensional hyperplane, consumers are actually being put as one of the axes in that hyperplane. And that is kind of nearness. So if I like, or out of all this, I have watched 10 content and with different intensity, then my point will be decided accordingly in that hyperplane, right? So that's how, and then people who are having the similar kind of preference, therefore will come closer in that hyperplane. People who are having very different preferences, they will go far away, right? So that's how automatically, based on this factor analysis, consumers will be connected together. Okay. So after that, what we have done, so therefore we have created this, so therefore we have been able to, what the first challenge we had the 110 hours of content, too many informations. We clubbed it into much less number of factors, and we said, okay, these contents are very similar, people are watching them together, let's combine them. And that's how we had been able to reduce the number of KPIs, and then gone ahead and do a segmentation analysis on top of that. Now, here the beauty is, in this kind of factors, there could be two different groups who actually have shared content. So there could be this new age women are actually watching, say, six different contents where they have a lot, strong preference. There could be another group who is action thriller, may also have an overlapping content. But that's okay. We are not necessarily creating here a messy kind of segmentations. So consumers are messy, but the contents can be overlapping. And that's why it is taste cluster, because it is not black and white. It is the intensity of preference. So some people might be liking 90%, some people liking 30%. So there is a possibility of overlap there. Okay. Now, how, the question is, all this science is really good, right? But how do we actually utilize it for the content decision making? Because I will go back to the first point, like where the business statement lies, that given a concept, given a story, or maybe given a video, like many a times there are production houses who already has shoot a video and already has created a movie, and then they come to us for the commissioning, like are we interested to buy that content or not, right? So in such cases, how am I going to take decision whether that content is going to work? Now the beauty lies there. So once again, I go back to that first chain of actions. Now the point is, so at one side I have all these fandom clusters, right? I also know what are their cluster size, what is the percentage engagement on different contents. I also know their lifetime value, because some of these people are, probably buying more of monthly packs, and then therefore there has a probability that they can churn out the next one. They may not come back next month, versus some people are more predominantly buying the annual pack where they have a better trust on our content. They actually have invested larger money and then they want to buy it. What's also important is, because there is a overlap, it is important to understand that how much is the segment overlaps. So imagine now, if two segments overlap a lot, that means contents are overlapping. So if I create a content which both of these segments actually can be satisfied, then with one content I can satisfy larger segment of people. On the other hand, if the segments are not so much overlapping or there is hardly any overlap, that means those are very niche segments. Their preferences are so niche that I have to, if I value those segments, suppose they are very high value consumers, then I have to ensure that every month or at least once every 2 months, I get a content of their preference. Otherwise, what will happen? I will be losing those people because they may not come back. If they find content of their preferences are not necessarily coming on the platform, they will lose interest on the platform and then they will go off. So therefore that helps us determine a content calendar, that if in the next month of say June or July I have to bring four content, what kind of content I should bring? I cannot bring all the four romance stories. That is never going to help, because that will overfeed certain segments and that will underfeed certain segments. So I have to have a right balance. Therefore, if a story comes which helps multiple segments, always better. But I also need to ensure that there are contents that's coming up which actually will also help and give entertainment to those niche clusters. Now, because of the cluster, therefore we have been able to understand that. Otherwise, we would have said, okay, these are beautiful content, let's deliver to the platform, without knowing how it is going to help my consumers. Okay. So from that, we therefore figure out that what are my top clusters, therefore how do we actually define it. So now, therefore, if a content synopsis has come, right, or probably the cast, many a times even casts are determined that, okay, these are the people, if you look at their social behavior, they actually endorse certain casts, right? So if we are even designing for a particular storyline, that who should I cast for that character, we also look at their social fandoms and etc., and figure out, okay, this person is, will be able to drag and drive a lot more consumer interest into this story. So one is, of course, whether this person will be able to do that character or not. But at the same time, if there are choices of five, then who is the person has larger association with our consumers? So with all those things, when we actually kind of understand the all meta informations, then we try to do the nearness test. So this content is actually near to which all segments, and based on that we take a call whether this is a yes, I mean absolute yes or not. Some of them could be experimental, we do not necessarily know, and then some of them clearly comes out that no, this is a overkill, I do not want to do that. Or even if I take that, I want to space out. I probably one I want to launch this month, 3 months down the line I want to launch another one, not immediately. Or there are contents which are very clear that we really do not want to do, because so far such contents, even if we have brought on the platform, didn't do well enough, right? So a lots of people therefore ask that, okay, where is the level of experimentations? Because this almost sounds like if I like Italian food, then you will keep on feeding me different kinds of pasta. That's not necessarily true, right? So what we do, we always keep a budget from our content creation, and there is a separate science we do for the content creation. So if it's an absolutely new concept, when we never brought a content on our platform, what we do, we create multiple small short stories, say a 5-minute videos, okay, and those are uploaded on YouTube, and we try to watch and observe how consumers, I mean, and because that's a free flow, I have no control on those contents. YouTube's automatic recommendation engine is recommending to people, and people are watching it and they are putting their comments. So we actually observe how people are relating to it, because even if it's the same concept, but the same concept could be told in so many different ways. Say for example, if it's about LGBTQ, the how am I going to tell the story is very important, right? Is it about a mother discovering that her child having a same sex partner, or is it about two friends? How am I going to tell the story? The concept is same, but the storytelling makes the difference. So we actually create different angles to it, and we create those small videos, we call it short stories. We try to observe how people are reacting to it, and then accordingly we take a call which story we want to build out of it, right? So there always is an experimentation budget. So fandom cluster learnings are refreshed every month to ensure that we are capturing new fandom and test cluster, but we always keep a good amount of experimental budget so that new concepts, new stories, new ideas could also brought into the platform. But it is important that we should do the we learn and fail fast, so we should be failing cheap and failing fast. So that's how we keep on learning, and those learning goes into our model, and those model keep on helping us that at least 60-70% of our content should have the right decision. Beyond that, it can be experimental, it could be learning over the time, but the majority chunk, that should be revenue earning for us. So that's how we do we have started doing lot more into it. We do lot more of neuroscience. So when a new concept comes, we take it for the neuro research, and neuroscience tells us how people brain at the back of it, different sections of the brain are behaving when they're listening to that story. So a certain section tells us that is the person already have started guessing, right? So for example, if it's a crime thriller, but in the middle of the story the person says, I already understood what's going to happen, because it had the story, I mean many a time we say story was very predictable, right? Because then is the time people say ki maza nahi aaya. So that's because already half of the way I understood what is going to happen. So then it is no more a crime thriller, or then it is no more a thriller, right? If I cannot hold the thrill till the end of it, or if I cannot have such twists in the whole story. So we do lots of such tests, and then therefore bring in that, okay, what are the changes we need to make? It is not to spoil the creativity of the writers, but it is to help them that the way you have written, people are reacting like that. And it is, I am not putting a barometer or a litmus test on him, but it is the consumer stress test that we are doing, and helping them that, okay, this is the section where people's brain has started already losing it. This is the place where attention span is going down, so somewhere you need to change it. and that actually helps the writers, the screenplay writer, the dialogue writers. And so for example, if it's too much slang, people after some time they start losing the interest into it, right? It almost feels like people are using slang just for the heck of using it, which doesn't necessarily work. It might work for other platform, but not necessarily for our kind of consumers. So those, scientific way of helping the creative people to take the right decisions through science as much possible is actually our aim. Okay, so that's it. Thank you so much.